My name is Margaret Hayes, and I am 84 years old. I have lived a quiet life in a small town in Maine for decades, the kind where everyone knows everyone and secrets rarely stay hidden. But on that stormy night, 41 years after the government sent me the death certificate of my husband, James, my world cracked open in a way I never thought possible. Rain lashed against the windows as I sat in my old rocking chair, knitting a blanket I'd probably never finish. The clock struck midnight when I heard the knock. It wasn't the usual gentle tap of my neighbor bringing pie or the mailman checking in.
No.
This was strong, deliberate, almost trembling. My heart pounded. Who could be visiting me at such an hour? I stood up, gripping my cane, every step towards the door feeling heavier than the last. I pulled the curtain aside, and my breath hitched. A tall man stood there, his silhouette framed by the porch light and rain. He was older, his hair gray and face weathered, but those eyes, those piercing blue eyes, were the same ones I had fallen in love with at 18. My cane clattered to the floor. "James?" I whispered, my voice cracking. He didn't answer immediately. He just stood there, soaked to the bone, trembling, as if fighting the words that wanted to burst out. Then he said it, low and shaky. "Maggie, I've come home." Tears filled my eyes. My knees buckled, and I clutched the doorframe for support. This couldn't be real. I buried him in my heart 4 decades ago. I had mourned him, received the folded flag, cried over his grave. Yet here he was, alive. Before I could speak again, before I could even reach for him, a shadow moved behind him. My eyes widened as a young woman, no older than 25, stepped into the light. She looked just like James, his jawline, his eyes, his stance. She clung to his arm and said softly, "Dad, are you sure she'll accept us?" The word, Dad, sliced through me. My husband, thought to be dead for 41 years, had returned with a daughter I never knew existed. I froze, my world spinning. James reached for me, but I stepped back, my voice trembling. Who is she?" He opened his mouth, his lips trembling, but before he could answer, thunder roared and the lights flickered. The young woman's gaze met mine with a mix of fear and defiance. James took a deep breath and said, "Maggie, there's something I must tell you, something that will change everything you thought you knew about me, about us, about the last 41 years. And then, before he could explain, the lights went out, plunging us into darkness. What secret had James been hiding all these years? Who was this mysterious young woman? And why had he stayed away for so long, letting me believe he was dead? The answers would shatter the life I thought I knew and reveal a truth more painful and shocking than anything I could have imagined. Stay with me as I unravel the nightmare and the miracle that walked through my door that night. The storm raged outside as I stood frozen in my own home, staring at the man I buried in my heart decades ago. James held the young woman protectively by the shoulders, his eyes pleading with me to let them in. My trembling hands finally reached for the doorframe, and I stepped aside without a word. They walked in, dripping rainwater onto the wooden floor, and the door clicked shut behind them with a sound that felt like the start of something I wasn't ready for. I turned on the old oil lamp on the table, its warm glow revealing every line on James's face. He looked older, yes, but not like a man who had suffered 41 years in hiding. He looked haunted. The young woman, meanwhile, clutched a small duffel bag, her posture tense. She avoided my gaze, as if ashamed, or maybe afraid of what she might see in my eyes. "Sit," I said, my voice surprisingly firm for someone whose world had just been shattered. They obeyed. James sat on the couch we used to share during cold winters, and she perched on the edge beside him, hands folded tightly. "You owe me an explanation," I said, my voice breaking. "They sent me a death certificate, James. A body was buried under your name. I mourned you. I lived alone all these years because I thought you were gone. Where were you? Who is she?" James swallowed hard, his hands gripping his knees. "Maggie," he started, his voice rough. "The day they told you I died, I was alive, but I wasn't free." His words cut through the air, heavy and sharp. I narrowed my eyes. "What do you mean you weren't free?" He took a deep breath and began to explain. "I was captured during that mission. They kept me for years, in places I can't even begin to describe. I tried to escape, and when I finally did, I was not the same man. They declared me dead because no one believed I'd survive. By the time I made it back, the world had moved on, and so had you, or so I thought. I didn't want to ruin your life. My hands trembled as I tried to process his words. And her? I asked, my gaze shifting to the young woman. She finally looked up, her eyes filled with both defiance and sadness. My name is Emily, she said softly. I'm his daughter. My heart clenched. Your daughter? With who? James's eyes dropped to the floor. During those years, Maggie, I was forced to make choices. Choices that haunt me to this day. Emily's mother, she saved my life. We were never married, but she gave me Emily. When she passed, Emily had no one but me. I've been raising her ever since. My knees felt weak, and I sank into the armchair. So you stayed away because you had her? James shook his head violently.
No.
I stayed away because I was ashamed. I didn't know how to face you after everything. And when I finally gathered the courage to come back, to tell you the truth, I didn't expect it to hurt this much. Silence filled the room, thick and suffocating. My heart was torn between rage, grief, and an ache I couldn't name. For years I had begged God for answers, for closure. And now, the answer sat before me, bringing with it more pain than comfort. Emily's voice broke the silence. I know this is hard to hear, but please, he's all I have. Don't send us away. I looked at her, at James, at the life I thought I'd buried with him. My lips trembled as I spoke. You think you can just walk back into my life like nothing happened? James's eyes glistened with tears.
No, Maggie.
I'm here to ask for forgiveness. But there's more you need to know, something about why I really disappeared and why I had to come back now. My heart skipped a beat. What do you mean? James leaned closer, his voice barely above a whisper. The men who held me, they never stopped looking for me. And they're closer than you think. A sudden bang on the door made all three of us jump. My blood ran cold. Who could possibly be outside at this hour again? And what danger was James bringing into my home? The truth was unraveling, and I wasn't sure if I was ready for what came next. The pounding on the door sent shivers crawling up my spine. It wasn't the hesitant knock of someone asking for help. It was forceful, urgent, and angry. James instantly got to his feet, his eyes scanning the room as if he was back on some battlefield. Emily clung to his arm, fear flashing across her young face. I, an old woman with nothing but my cane and trembling hands, felt my breath catch. Stay here, James whispered to Emily, his voice low but commanding. He moved to the door quietly, his shoulders tense. My heart pounded so loudly, I thought whoever was outside could hear it. James looked back at me, and in that moment, I saw the soldier in him again, the man who had once vowed to protect me at any cost. He raised a finger to his lips, signaling me to stay silent. Then, he flung the door open. The storm had stopped, but the night was still and eerie. No one stood on the porch. James stepped out slowly, scanning the yard. The only sound was the distant croak of frogs by the pond and the rustle of leaves. He stepped further into the yard, looking left and right. I stood in the doorway, clutching my chest, praying silently. Then, out of the darkness, a black car engine roared to life and headlights blazed. The car sped past the house, splashing mud across the driveway, and disappeared down the road. James came back inside quickly, locking the door behind him.
Who was that?
I asked, my voice shaking. They know, James muttered, his jaw tight. Who knows what? I demanded, my frustration boiling over. The people who took me. The ones who made me disappear. They've been tracking me since I escaped. I thought I lost them. I was wrong. Emily's eyes welled with tears. Dad, are they going to hurt us? James knelt beside her, his face softening. Not if I can help it, sweetheart. Then he looked at me. Maggie, you need to trust me. We can't stay here for long. It's not safe. Anger flared in me. You vanished for 41 years, show up with another life, and now you're telling me my home isn't safe? This house is all I have left, James. His voice cracked. I know. But if they find us here, they won't just take me. They'll take anyone close to me, including you. The room spun. My home, my sanctuary, now felt like a cage. I sank back into the armchair, clutching my head. I didn't know whether to scream, cry, or throw him out. Emily stepped forward timidly. Mrs. Hayes, please. He came back because he loves you. Don't push him away. Her words softened the rage inside me, if only for a moment. I looked at James, at the man I had loved all my life, and my heart ached. But I couldn't ignore the storm he had brought to my doorstep. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed outside, glass shattering, followed by the sharp screech of tires. James rushed to the window and pulled the curtain aside. His face turned pale. They found us, he whispered. Before I could ask what he meant, a figure darted across the yard, and another crash shook the house. My heart leapt into my throat. James grabbed a wooden bat from behind the door, his voice firm. Maggie, Emily, get to the back room.
Now.
I hesitated. James, what's happening? They're here to finish what they started, he said through gritted teeth. Emily tugged my hand, and I followed her to the back room, my heart racing. As James stood his ground in the living room, ready to fight, I couldn't help but wonder what horrors had followed him home. The next sound I heard was the door splintering and James shouting. Emily held my hand tightly, her small frame shaking. My breath caught in my chest as the unmistakable sound of footsteps stormed into my house. Whoever they weren't just here to scare us. And as James's voice yelled my name in desperation, I knew this night was far from over. The front door crashed to the floor, the sound echoing through the house like a gunshot. Emily clutched my hand so tightly her nails dug into my skin. My heart raced, my breathing shallow. We could hear the heavy boots of strangers stomping into the living room, followed by James shouting, "Stay back." There was a thud, the sound of something or someone hitting the floor. I froze. Emily let out a soft sob, and I pulled her close, trying to calm her even as fear gripped me. The back room suddenly felt like a trap, nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. Then came a voice, cold, male, and unfamiliar. "You've been hiding for too long, Hayes. Time to come with us." James growled back, over my dead body. The voice laughed, low and chilling. "We can arrange that." The sound of a struggle erupted, furniture crashing, glass shattering. Emily buried her face in my shoulder as tears streamed down her cheeks. I wanted to run to James, to help him, but my body felt paralyzed. Memories of the young soldier I loved so long ago flashed before my eyes. He had gone to war once and never returned. Now, he was fighting another war in my living room. Suddenly, there was silence. A terrifying, heavy silence. I couldn't breathe. Then, James's voice, hoarse but alive, called out, "Maggie, stay where you are." The next second, a figure appeared at the doorway of the back room. It wasn't James. A tall man, dressed in black, stepped in, his face hidden under a hood. He had a scar running across his cheek, and in his hand was a gun. My heart stopped. Well, he said, his voice like ice. "The wife. You are supposed to stay out of this." Emily screamed, and I stepped in front of her, my body shaking but my voice steady. "Leave her alone. Take whatever you want and go."
He smirked.
"We're not here for things, lady. We're here for him. And anyone who gets in the way is just collateral." Before he could take another step, James appeared from behind, his face bruised, holding a broken chair leg like a weapon. With a roar I never thought possible from a man his age, he swung it at the attacker, knocking the gun from his hand. The man stumbled back, cursing, as James tackled him to the ground. The fight was brutal, raw, and desperate. The man was younger, stronger, but James fought like a man with nothing to lose. Emily screamed as they crashed into the wall. I grabbed the nearest thing I could, a lamp, and with every ounce of strength left in me, I smashed it over the intruder's head. The man went limp. James, breathing hard, tied his hands with an old rope we found in the corner. "We don't have much time," he said, wiping blood from his lip. "There's more of them. We have to go."
Now.
Go where? I demanded, my voice shaking. To a place they can't find us. Somewhere safe. But first, you need to know the truth. I stared at him, my chest heaving. What truth? He looked me in the eyes, his voice trembling. The people hunting me, they aren't just criminals. They were part of something bigger, something the government buried. I was part of an operation that was never supposed to exist, and they're cleaning up the loose ends. I didn't just escape them, Maggie. I stole something from them. Something they'll kill for. Emily clutched his arm. Dad, tell her everything before it's too late. James's eyes darkened. I will, but we have to move now. They'll send more men, and when they do, they won't be as sloppy. As we stepped out into the night, the distant sound of engines roared again, getting closer. The shadows of more cars appeared at the end of the road, headlights glaring through the mist. My heart sank. James grabbed my hand, his other arm around Emily. Run, he said. And for the first time in 41 years, we ran together again, this time not from war, but from the past that refused to die. But as we disappeared into the darkness, I couldn't shake the thought. What exactly had James stolen, and why was it so important they'd kill us all for it? We ran through the darkness, the cold night air cutting through my lungs like shards of glass. Emily's small hand gripped mine tightly, her breath sharp and uneven. James led the way, his movements steady despite the injuries on his face. Behind us, the sound of engines grew louder. More cars, more men. He led us through the woods behind my house, the trees swallowing us into their shadows. Branches cracked under our feet, and every rustle made my heart skip. I had never run this far, not in years, but adrenaline carried me. I didn't dare look back. After what felt like forever, James stopped, leaning against a tree to catch his breath. We can't keep going like this, I gasped, clutching my chest. He scanned the area, his eyes sharp even in the dark. There's an old cabin a mile from here. Safe house. I stashed some things there, just in case. Just in case. I snapped, my voice trembling. You planned for this? James's jaw tightened. I hoped this day would never come. But yes, I prepared. Because when you've lived running from shadows as long as I have, you learn to expect the worst. Emily's voice was small. Dad, are they going to find us? He knelt down, cupping her face. Not if I can help it, sweetheart. Not if I can help it. We moved again, slower this time, weaving through the trees until a dim light flickered ahead. The cabin was old and weathered, hidden beneath overgrown vines. James pushed the door open, and we slipped inside. He lit a small lantern, revealing a single room with a cot, a wooden table, and a metal box in the corner. What is this place? I asked. A safe house I built years ago when I realized they'd never stop hunting me, he said, walking to the metal box. He unlocked it with a key hanging around his neck and pulled out a folder, thick with documents and photographs. What's in there? I asked, my curiosity warring with fear. The reason they want me dead, he said, laying the contents on the table. There were old photos of soldiers, maps with red markings, and files stamped classified. One picture caught my eye, James standing with a group of men, one of them wearing a strange insignia on his uniform. This, James said, pointing to the insignia, is the mark of a covert unit that wasn't supposed to exist. We were sent on missions the government denied. One mission went wrong. We uncovered something they didn't want the world to know, proof of crimes that would have destroyed powerful people. I smuggled out the evidence. I've been hiding it ever since. My hands trembled as I picked up one of the photos. James, you've been carrying this for 41 years? Yes, he said quietly. And now they know I still have it. They want to erase every trace of it, including me. Emily's voice quivered. So, that means they'll come for us too? James's face hardened. Not if I end this. Fear shot through me. What are you planning? I'm going to finish what I started. I'm going to expose them. But to do that, I need to move fast, and I need you to trust me. Before I could answer, a faint beam of light swept across the cabin window. My heart lurched. James blew out the lantern instantly, plunging us into darkness. He grabbed Emily and motioned for me to stay quiet. We crouched on the floor, barely breathing. Outside, voices whispered and footsteps crunched on the leaves. "Search everywhere," one of them said. I clutched Emily to my chest, my heart pounding so loud I feared they'd hear it. James crawled toward the back door, signaling for us to follow. We slipped out silently, the night wrapping around us like a cloak. We barely made it to the tree before a voice shouted, "They're here," and a gunshot ripped through the air. The bullet whizzed past us, hitting a tree with a dull thud. Emily screamed, and James pulled us to the ground. "Run to the creek," he ordered. "Go!" We ran again, ducking and weaving through the trees as more shots rang out. My legs felt like they were on fire, but fear kept me moving. We splashed into the cold creek water, hiding under the cover of rocks and branches as the men's flashlights swept over the woods. The water numbed my body, but my mind raced. If James had evidence that could destroy powerful people, what else were they willing to do to stop him? We waited in silence until the voices faded. James finally whispered, "They won't stop. We have to move to the city, where it's harder for them to track us. There's someone there who can help." "Who?" I asked, my voice trembling. "An old friend. The only one I can trust," he said. And as we crawled out of the freezing creek and started moving again, I realized my life had changed forever. The man I loved was not only alive, he was a man hunted by ghosts of the past, dragging us into a storm far bigger than I could imagine. But one question haunted me most. What would happen when these men finally caught up to us? The city lights flickered in the distance like a promise and a threat. By the time we reached its outskirts, dawn had barely broken. My legs ached, my shoes were soaked, and every breath felt like fire. Emily clung to my side, shivering in the cold morning air. James walked ahead of us with a grim determination that scared me more than the men chasing us. We entered through a deserted side street, where buildings stood like silent sentinels. James led us to an old garage, its doors rusted and covered in graffiti. He tapped a strange rhythm on the metal door, and after a moment, it creaked open. Inside stood a man with graying hair, sharp eyes, and a pistol tucked at his side. "Hayes," the man said with a half-smile. "You're still alive." "Barely," James replied. "We need help, Frank." Frank's eyes narrowed as he scanned me and Emily. "This your family?" James nodded.
Yes.
"And they're in danger because of me." Frank motioned us inside quickly, shutting the door. "You've stirred up the hornet's nest, old friend. They've been asking questions. There's a bounty on your head and on anyone close to you." My knees nearly gave way. "A bounty? For what?" Frank looked at me, his voice low. "For the files he's carrying. Whoever holds them controls the truth. That makes him either the most powerful man in the room or a dead one." Emily tightened her grip on my hand, her voice small. "Are they going to kill us?" "No," James said firmly. "Not while I'm breathing." Frank led us to a small back room filled with computers and maps. "They'll be watching airports, train stations, everything. You can't stay long, but you can stay here until nightfall." As we sat, James pulled out the folder from the safe house, spreading its contents across the table. Frank scanned the files, whistling low. "You still have this?" "I thought it was destroyed." "They thought wrong," James said. "These documents prove they were running illegal experiments on prisoners of war. They buried the evidence by killing everyone involved. I was supposed to be one of the bodies." My heart clenched as I listened. "So this is why you disappeared? Why you let me think you were dead?" James's eyes softened. "I couldn't put you in danger, Maggie. If they knew you were alive and connected to me, they'd use you to get to me. I had to stay away." Tears blurred my vision. 41 years, James. Do you know how many nights I cried myself to sleep thinking you were gone? "I know," he whispered, his voice breaking. "And I will spend the rest of my life making it right." The tender moment was cut short when an alarm beeped on Frank's computer. He leaned forward, his face tense. "They've found you. Cameras picked up your faces 2 blocks away. You have minutes, maybe less." James grabbed the folder, stuffing it into his jacket. "We need to move now." Frank handed him a set of car keys. "Take the back alley. There's an old van out there. It's not pretty, but it'll get you to the next safe spot. I'll cover your tracks." Emily hugged Frank quickly. "Thank you," she whispered. We ran to the van, hearts pounding. James started the engine, and we sped through the narrow streets just as black SUVs appeared at the end of the alley. Bullets shattered the air as we swerved, tires screeching. I held Emily close, praying under my breath. James drove like a man possessed, weaving through traffic and ducking into side streets. The SUVs followed relentlessly, their headlights glaring in the rearview mirror. "Hold on," he shouted as he swerved sharply, barely avoiding a collision. One of the SUVs rammed into us, the van jerking violently. Emily screamed. I clutched the seat, my knuckles white. James slammed the brakes, causing the SUV to overshoot us, then accelerated hard, smashing into its side and sending it spinning. The other SUV stayed close, gaining on us. Just when I thought it was over, Frank's voice crackled over a small radio James had. "Turn left at the bridge."
Now.
James obeyed, skidding onto the bridge. As we crossed, an explosion lit up behind us, shaking the bridge. I screamed as debris rained down, but James kept driving, his face set with determination. We finally lost them, the van rattling as we slowed into an abandoned warehouse district. James parked behind an old factory and killed the engine. Silence fell, heavy and suffocating. I turned to James, my voice trembling. "How long can we keep running like this?" He looked at me, his eyes dark with resolve. "Not long. That's why I have to end this once and for all. There's someone higher up pulling the strings, Maggie. Someone who knows everything. If I can reach him, we have a chance."
Who? I asked.
James hesitated, his jaw tightening. "The man who signed my death certificate." Before I could speak, the faint sound of footsteps echoed outside the warehouse. James grabbed his weapon, his voice low. "Stay here. Don't move." Emily clung to me as the door creaked open and a figure stepped in, one I recognized instantly. It was a man from my past. Someone I never thought I'd see again. And when he smiled at me with cold familiarity, I knew our nightmare had only just begun. The dim light from the warehouse flickered as the man stepped forward, his shoes echoing against the concrete floor. My breath caught in my throat. His face was older, lined with age, but unmistakable. "Robert," I whispered, my voice trembling. He smirked, the same smirk I remembered from decades ago. "Hello, Maggie. It's been a long time." James froze, his weapon raised. "You're behind this?" Robert shrugged, his tone calm, almost mocking. "Behind it? I built it, James. You should have stayed dead. Things were easier that way." My mind spun. Robert was James's old friend from the military, the man who used to visit me when James was overseas. He had comforted me when I received the death certificate, told me to stay strong. I never suspected that he had anything to do with James's disappearance. "You lied to me," I said, my voice shaking with rage. "You knew he was alive?" Robert's smirk widened. "Of course I did. I signed the papers myself. You think I didn't know what happened to him? I made sure of it. James was a threat to everything we built. He carried secrets that could destroy powerful men, myself included." James's grip on his weapon tightened. "You were supposed to be my brother, Robert. You left me to rot in that hellhole." Robert's eyes turned cold. "You were weak. You hesitated when we were ordered to burn those villages, to erase the evidence. Weakness has no place in power. So I erased you." Emily stepped closer to me, her small hand gripping mine. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Dad, don't listen to him." Robert's gaze shifted to Emily, and his smile turned sinister. And this must be the little loose end.
Cute.
Shame she has to die for her father's mistakes." James roared, "You'll never touch her." Before Robert could react, James lunged. The two men clashed violently, fists flying, grunts echoing in the warehouse. The gun slipped from James's hand, skidding across the floor. I scrambled for it, my heart pounding. Robert slammed James against the wall, his hand around his throat. "You should have stayed dead," Robert hissed. With every ounce of strength left in me, I picked up the gun. My hand shook so badly, I thought I'd drop it. "Let him go, Robert." I screamed. Robert turned his head, sneering. You won't shoot me, Maggie. You're not a killer. But he underestimated 41 years of pain, loneliness, and betrayal burning inside me. My finger trembled on the trigger. James gasped, struggling. Maggie, do it. The sound of the gunshot ripped through the air, deafening. Robert stumbled back, clutching his shoulder, his face twisted in shock. James shoved him away, sending him crashing to the floor. Blood pooled beneath him, his breath ragged. I stood frozen, the gun still smoking in my hands. Emily clung to me, crying. James limped toward Robert, standing over him. It's over, he said coldly. But Robert laughed, even as he bled. You think this ends with me? You have no idea how deep this goes. They'll keep coming. They'll never stop. James crouched down, his voice low and deadly. Then I'll make them stop. Before James could finish him, Robert pulled something from his pocket, a small remote. His thumb hovered over the button. I may die, Robert hissed, but you're not leaving this place alive. James lunged, but it was too late. Robert pressed the button, and an alarm blared through the warehouse. Red lights flashed, and somewhere above us, machinery began to hum. What did you do? I shouted. Robert's voice was weak, but full of malice. Self-destruct. You have 5 minutes. James grabbed my hand, his other arm pulling Emily close. We have to go.
Now.
We sprinted through the maze of crates and machinery as the building groaned, ready to collapse. Explosions erupted behind us, flames licking the walls. My lungs burned, my legs screamed, but we kept running. As we reached the exit, debris crashed down, blocking our path. James shoved a beam aside, his muscles straining. Go, he yelled, pushing us through the gap. We burst out into the cold night just as the warehouse exploded behind us, the blast knocking us to the ground. Heat and smoke filled the air, but we were alive. James coughed, helping me to my feet. Emily clung to both of us, sobbing. The warehouse burned like a funeral pyre, lighting up the night sky. I turned to James, tears streaming down my face. It's over, isn't it? He shook his head slowly, his eyes full of determination.
No, Maggie.
Robert was just a pawn. The real enemy is still out there. And as the fire raged behind us, I realized our fight had only just begun. The glow of the burning warehouse lit the horizon like a warning, and the smell of smoke clung to our clothes long after we left the scene. We walked for miles before Frank found us, pulling up in a different vehicle than before, his face pale when he saw the fire's reflection in the night sky. You weren't supposed to fight him head-on, Frank hissed, helping us into the van. Do you know what you've done? The explosion will bring them faster. Whoever's above Robert won't let this slide. James leaned back, exhausted, blood on his hands. We didn't have a choice. He was going to kill us. Frank drove us through the dark city streets, his eyes flicking nervously to the rearview mirror. Emily fell asleep against my shoulder, her tiny hands still trembling. I stroked her hair, my heart breaking at how quickly she was forced to grow up. I whispered, James, who is the man behind all this? Robert said there was someone else. James looked out the window, his jaw clenched. The man behind this is General Lawson. He ran the covert operations. He's the one who ordered my unit to commit atrocities, then silenced everyone who could expose him. Robert was just his dog. Frank glanced back. Lawson's untouchable. He's not just powerful, he owns senators, companies, and half the military. Taking him down is suicide. James's eyes hardened. Then I guess I'm suicidal, because I'm not running anymore. We reached another safe house, this one hidden beneath an abandoned church. Inside, it smelled of old wood and candle wax. Frank handed James a new burner phone and a sealed envelope. These are contacts who still owe me favors. Some of them still believe in justice. But be careful, James, one wrong move, and you'll lead them straight to us. James opened the envelope, scanning the names. I'll start with the journalist. If we leak this evidence to the right person, we can bring Lawson down. I placed my hand on his arm. James, you've been fighting this war alone for 41 years. Are you sure dragging us through it won't kill us? He met my gaze with eyes full of guilt and love. Maggie, I would die to keep you safe. But if we run, they'll never stop. This ends now. We spent the night on thin mattresses, the sound of distant sirens outside. My mind wouldn't rest. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Robert's bloody smirk, heard the explosion, smelled the smoke. I wanted to believe James could win this, but deep down, I feared the cost. At dawn, James left the safe house to meet his contact. I begged to go with him, but he refused. If something happens to me, stay with Frank. Take Emily far away. Hours passed like days. Emily asked every few minutes, "When will Dad be back?" I smiled for her, but inside I was drowning in fear. Then, just as the sun dipped below the horizon, the door burst open. James staggered in, his shirt torn, blood dripping from his arm. "James." I ran to him, helping him sit. Frank quickly grabbed supplies to patch him up. "They were waiting for me," James panted. "The journalist was compromised. They ambushed me, but I got something." He pulled a flash drive from his pocket, blood smeared on it. This is the smoking gun. Video, documents, everything. If we upload this, Lawson's finished. Frank examined it, whistling low. "This could burn the entire operation to the ground. But they'll know you have it. They'll come hard, and they'll come soon." Suddenly, the lights in the church flickered, then went out. The sound of engines roared outside. James jumped to his feet, clutching his wounded arm. "They found us." Before we could move, a voice echoed from a loudspeaker outside. Cold. Ruthless. "James Hayes, this is General Lawson. You have something that belongs to me. Hand it over, and I'll let the woman and child live. Refuse, and I'll burn this place to the ground with all of you inside." My blood froze. Emily hid behind me, her little hands shaking. James's face darkened with rage. He shouted back, "You'll have to kill me first." Lawson laughed, the sound like death itself. "Gladly." Spotlights flooded the church windows, blinding us. The sound of boots approached from every direction. James turned to me, his voice low and urgent. "Maggie, no matter what happens, you get Emily out of here. Promise me." Tears welled in my eyes. "James, don't do this. Promise me." I choked out the words, "I promise." He handed the flash drive to Frank. "Get it to the drop point if I don't make it. The truth dies with me otherwise." The walls shook as the first explosion hit, blowing the doors off their hinges. Smoke filled the room. James grabbed a weapon, eyes blazing with the fire of a man ready to sacrifice everything. "Maggie," he said, looking at me one last time, "I love you." And then he charged into the smoke, straight toward the soldiers storming the building. I screamed his name, but the sound was drowned out by gunfire and chaos. Emily cried into my chest, and Frank dragged us toward the back exit. The last thing I saw before disappearing into the night was James standing in the doorway, firing into the shadows as the world burned around him. The night was alive with gunfire. Smoke rolled through the broken windows of the church as explosions shook the walls. Frank pulled me and Emily through the back, every step feeling like the last. Emily sobbed quietly, her arms wrapped around my neck, while my own heart felt like it was being ripped from my chest. Behind us, James's shouts echoed through the chaos, each burst of gunfire reminding me he was still fighting, but for how long? Frank kicked open a door that led to an alley and pushed us forward. "Run."
"Don't stop," he barked.
The van was parked a block away, hidden behind a dumpster. We sprinted toward it, my legs trembling, my breath sharp and shallow. As soon as we were inside, Frank slammed the door and floored the accelerator, tires screeching as we sped into the dark. From the rear window, I saw the church engulfed in flames. My chest tightened, my throat burned. James was still in there. "No!" I cried, pounding on the glass. "We can't leave him." Frank's jaw was tight, his eyes locked on the road. "If we go back, we all die. Trust him, he's buying us time." Emily clutched my hand, whispering through tears, "Dad's strong. He'll come back." I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to. Minutes felt like hours as we drove deeper into the city, weaving through back streets until Frank pulled into an underground parking lot. He parked in the shadows, cutting the engine. We'll wait here. If Hayes is alive, this is where he'll come. I held Emily close, rocking her gently while the silence around us grew heavy. My mind raced with memories, our wedding, his laugh, the day he left for the war. I thought I'd lost him once, and it nearly destroyed me. Could I survive losing him again? Suddenly, footsteps echoed through the lot. My heart leapt into my throat. Frank drew his pistol, aiming at the entrance. A figure staggered into view, bloodied, limping, but alive. "James!" I cried, throwing the door open. He collapsed into my arms, his face pale, blood soaking his shirt. "I'm fine," he rasped, even though he clearly wasn't. "Lawson, he's still alive." He slipped out before the building came down, but I took out most of his men. Frank helped him into the van, quickly patching his wounds. "You can't keep this up, Hayes. You're one man against an army." James grimaced, holding the flash drive tightly. "I'm not stopping until this ends. Lawson's planning something big." I overheard him. "He's meeting his people tomorrow night at the Harbor Tower. If we can upload this evidence during that meeting, it'll hit every news outlet in the country." Frank's eyes widened. "That's suicide. The tower will be crawling with his men." James looked at me, his expression both pained and determined. "Maggie, if something happens to me, you have to promise you'll take this to the press. Promise me." I grabbed his hand, tears streaming down my face.
No.
"You're not dying on me again. We'll do this together." He cupped my cheek with a trembling hand. "I don't deserve you." Before I could answer, the sound of approaching vehicles echoed through the garage. Frank cursed under his breath. They tracked us. James grabbed his weapon, his eyes blazing. "Get Maggie and Emily out the back. I'll hold them off." "No," I shouted. "You're too weak." He cut me off, his voice firm. "You promised me, Maggie. Now go." Frank pulled me toward a side door, Emily clinging to my waist. Gunfire erupted as soldiers swarmed the garage. James took cover behind a pillar, firing back with everything he had. I screamed his name as Frank dragged us down a stairwell, the sound of bullets ringing in my ears. We reached the street level and ran, my heart shattering with every step away from him. Then, above the chaos, I heard a deafening explosion. The shockwave knocked us to the ground. I turned back just in time to see the garage collapse in flames. "No!" I screamed, my voice raw. Emily sobbed uncontrollably, clutching my arm. Frank pulled us to our feet. "We can't stop now. If he's alive, he'll find us. If not, we finish this for him." The world spun, tears blurring my vision, but I forced myself to move. James had given everything to protect us and to expose the truth. As we disappeared into the night, a single thought burned in my mind. If James was gone, Lawson would pay with his life. The city was eerily quiet as dawn broke, but inside me, a storm raged. I sat in a darkened motel room with Emily asleep beside me, her tiny hand still clinging to mine, as if letting go would mean losing everything. My thoughts were with James. I didn't know if he had survived the explosion in the parking garage or if I had just lost him for good. Frank paced the room, checking his watch every few minutes. "We don't have much time. Lawson's meeting is tonight. If we don't act, everything James fought for dies with him." I swallowed hard, wiping tears from my cheeks. "Then we act. We finish this." Frank nodded. "The Harbor Tower is a fortress, but there's a maintenance entrance we can use. Once we're inside, we upload the files from the server room on the top floor. Once the data is live, there's no stopping it." Emily stirred, opening her eyes. "Is Dad coming?" she asked softly. My heart broke. I smoothed her hair and forced a smile. "He'll find us, sweetheart. He always does." As the day dragged on, Frank prepared equipment, disguises, a laptop, and a small gun he pressed into my hand. "You may need this," he said. I stared at it, trembling. I never imagined at 84 I'd be holding a weapon, but the fire in me burned hotter than fear. When night fell, we moved. The Harbor Tower rose above the city like a gleaming dagger, its windows glowing with the power of those who thought they were untouchable. Frank led us through back alleys until we reached the maintenance door. With a few clicks, he bypassed the lock and we slipped inside. The building was a maze of cold hallways and security cameras. Frank jammed the feeds with a device, whispering, "Move quickly. They'll notice soon." We crept through the shadows, climbing stairwells until we reached the top floor. My heart pounded with each step. The server room was ahead, its door secured with an electronic lock. Frank knelt, working furiously. Suddenly, footsteps echoed behind us.
We froze.
A voice, cold and familiar, sliced through the silence. "Going somewhere?" Lawson stepped out of the shadows, flanked by armed guards. His suit was immaculate, his smile dripping with arrogance. "You really thought you could win, Maggie? Without James? Pathetic." I raised the gun, my hands shaking. "You took 41 years from me. You won't take this." Lawson laughed. "Do you think you scare me? Old woman, you're nothing without your soldier." And then a voice, hoarse but alive, echoed from the darkness. "She's not alone." James emerged from the stairwell, bloodied, limping, but with eyes blazing like fire. My heart nearly stopped. Emily cried out, "Dad." Lawson's smug smile faltered. "You should be dead." James leveled his weapon. "You've been trying to kill me for decades. Tonight it ends." Chaos erupted. Gunfire thundered in the hallway as James charged, taking down 2 guards with precise shots. Frank yanked Emily and me to cover as bullets tore through the walls. Lawson fled into the server room, sealing the door behind him. James limped toward the lock, his face grim. "Get Emily out. I'll handle this." "No," I said fiercely. "We finish this together." The lock clicked open under Frank's hands, and we stormed inside. Lawson stood by the servers, holding a detonator. "One step closer, and this building burns with you in it," he snarled. James raised his gun. "You won't destroy the truth." Lawson sneered. "You think the truth matters? People believe what they're told. You're just a ghost clinging to the past." I stepped forward, my voice steady. "Then let the world hear the ghost scream." Frank slid the flash drive into the server. Lights blinked as files began to upload. Lawson roared and lunged, raising the detonator. James fired. The shot echoed like thunder. Lawson collapsed, the detonator slipping from his hand. The upload completed, screens flashing as evidence streamed across networks worldwide. Images, videos, documents, all of it exposed in real time. Alarms blared. Security swarmed the building. Frank grabbed Emily and we ran, James covering our escape despite his wounds. We burst out into the night just as sirens wailed and news helicopters circled the tower. For the first time in decades, the truth was free. We found refuge hours later in a safe house far from the city. James collapsed onto the bed, his body battered but alive. I sat beside him, holding his hand. "You did it," I whispered through tears. He smiled weakly. "No, Maggie. We did it." Emily climbed into his arms, clinging to him as if she'd never let go. For the first time since that knock on my door, I felt hope bloom in my chest. James closed his eyes, breathing deeply. "It's over," he murmured. "We can finally live." As dawn rose over the horizon, painting the sky in gold, I held my family close. The world finally knew the truth, and the men who tried to silence us were falling one by one. The lesson was clear. You can bury a man, but you can't bury the truth. And as I watched the sun rise with James's hand in mine, I knew we had won. Not just the fight, but our lives back.